Right, well, I've spent a fair bit of time now looking at the wiring and sorting it out, and I'm really pleased to know I've got virtually everything working. I can't sort out the charging circuit up until the time that I actually have the engine running. I bought myself a pack of all of the right kind of fixings, the bullet connectors. They're not particularly expensive ones, but they're okay. Using a nice crimp tool that I originally bought from a local supermarket, and shrink tube. That's some longer lengths of this, and for the shorter pieces I've been using that. Again, sourced from a local supermarket. So I'll show you a little bit more of the things that I've actually done with the wiring. So most of the fasteners are these kind. This one's a socket, a female obviously, and here's a male. Yeah. And there's two parts to it, one where it clips onto the wire, one where it clips onto the actual casing. So first of all, let's tidy up the end of the wire. God, it's nifty. Now I tend to just crimp them in a little bit, just so that they will grip on and you're not having to try and balance everything. You take the outer, give that a twist, take the outer, and these little crimping things have various shapes. You have to find the one that suits the most. Now I think it's that one. The idea being it's supposed to fold the two pieces of metal over it and then crimp it down, put a stamp in the back. Now I can't say this works wonderfully well, but it isn't bad. So as you can see, that's the metal part crimped over, and then I'll just move on, probably just ease them in a little bit. This never quite seems to work quite as well, but works well enough. And then this is just to hold it onto the plastic from the outside. Yeah, and no, it's actually on very, very firm. You can see the indents in the back, yeah, and electrically it's a great connection. I'm sure a lot of people watch this and think, God, that's terrible, but hey, it's working for me. Push that over so it's insulated there, and pretty much the job is a good one. Now to sort the wiring out, because it was a real mess, I got myself a copy of the wiring diagram, and what I did was I worked every wire through, putting the connectors on, joining them together, testing it, and ticking it off till I'd worked through all the way. Areas I had an issue with was couldn't get the indicators to work at first, but it's not on this diagram. It's actually on that one. I'll put it that way around for you. And what it turned out to be was the winker relay was completely missing. They must obviously be borrowed for another bike. Luckily I had a spare that I put in. Another thing that I had a little bit of faffing around with was the neutral switch wire. It was a bit odd where it went into the to light it up on the tachometer. So, and I had a bit of fiddling about there. You'll notice that some of them you've actually got 4 wires going together, or maybe even more sometimes. So I had to get double connectors, and I used those to create these. Because part of the wiring had been cut, I sometimes made these a double so that I could extend the wiring a little bit to make up for the bit that had been cut off. And this is what I've ended up with. It still looks like a rat's nest. I'm going to leave it like that until I've got it running, got it all together. And then what I'll do is I'll use some cable ties and use some black tape to form it into a bundle that will fit under the tank. To be honest, that's how most of them are, you know, Triumphs, Hondas, like that, especially when they haven't used block connectors. You can see perhaps here where I've extended by using two doubles, double on that end, double on that end, so that all the wires can be joined together. And it just gives me that little bit more room to play with. There's the new Winker relay. Cleaned all the connections on these. It's a Lucas Winker relay. I hope Sashiro Honda forgives me for using a British bit for that, but it does work absolutely fine. One of the other things I had to do was repair the positive battery terminal. It had melted, all the coverings had melted, and the end was completely broken. So I soldered on a new end, I put on some heat shrink, and it's great. It's only led on to the extra problem that I've now found, which is the battery I bought has the terminals on the wrong side of the battery. Now you may say, well, that's an amateur thing that you should have spotted straight away. However, I actually bought a battery that was the same as the one that was in the bike. And this was sat in the bike, although it wasn't connected up. So when I was looking, I bought one with terminals in the same way. What I didn't realise, though, at the time, was that the terminals actually needed to be on that side. So I don't know what they'd been doing originally. Now, I bought a really nice gel battery, so I'd really like to use it. So what I'm thinking of at the moment is I know that the earth strap can be made to reach onto the other side. I may look at either putting an extension piece in or possibly getting a new cable and making it all the way from the solenoid. Not decided at the moment. There's no rush, you know. It might be I decide to buy another battery. Hopefully not, because they are quite dear and I haven't got a use for the one that I've bought in, you know, as it stands. I haven't yet finished off with the headlight ears or the headlight, so I put the indicators on just so that I could get them all working. The thing that I have done though is I left the wires for main beam and for dip beam loose, so that when I do put the headlight in, it should all fix up pretty well. As you can see, some of the wiring where I've put sheet shrink over, it's looking okay. I also cleaned the terminals and bought a new button so that I could fix the starter and the horn properly. Now, admittedly, I only got the button and I had to use a spring out of a ballpoint pen, but it works a treat. The horn works absolutely fine. All of the switchgear works absolutely great at the moment. You can see, perhaps I'll read a little bit more about that on our blog, because I've written up quite a bit more about what I did with the switchgear with some pictures as well. So, that's the wiring done to a great extent. I mean, I've still got the issue with the battery to sort out. I've put on the handlebars where I've fed the wires through, written that up on the blog in case you want to look in. That was really easy to put the wires in here, really difficult to get them out of the Z bars. All the switchgear works, everything electrical, apart from the charging system, which I haven't managed to check, seems to be working okay. So what I'm moving on to next, I think, is I've got some painting I've been doing. I've got the fuel tank that I've been cleaning out, so I need to get that clean before I paint it. I'm also hoping, put oil in, give it a good clean, the tank and everything, put some oil in, get some fuel in and see if it'll start. Hopefully within the next week or so.